All right, welcome to another episode of Mic Checka, the show where I talk to dope people doing dope things. I got one of my closest homies, man, on the line. This is a proud moment in my podcast. I had Blake on earlier, who was most attractive guy in our class,
Yeah,
by far. And I have one of the most business minded, I feel like, in our class. I'm gonna go into some stories you telling me early about casinos in Cuba. He was early into the restaurant management in high school. He was like, man, I'm gonna be a restaurant manager, man. I'm gonna go to Mizzou for 2 years, and then I'm gonna go to UNLV. I've never seen nobody platform their career at an early age from freshman year of high school, except for this guy right here.
yeah.
Alec Pinkston, man. Thank you for coming on, man.
My absolute pleasure. Absolutely.
Then he went into writing. He's doing like crazy shit now, but like, so Alec, let's start beginning, man. You and like people understand you are as close to Nelly as most people don't understand because you grew up in your city.
Actually, I do have a good Nelly story. I was driving back from work one time, and I was driving down Del Mar, and at that point, that was the one summer. It was the best summer ever for this car. But I inherited my grandpa's 1983 Delta 88, which was like an amazing. It was burgundy. It was gorgeous car, and it was like one of those cars, where like you can go like this and it doesn't move. It like stays perfectly straight. Like you have to go like all the way like that before the car reacts in the slightest. And
so all your turns were like this.
Oh man, it was a boat for sure. I mean, each door felt like it weighed like 85 pounds. I mean, it was gorgeous car. Every single stoplight I pulled up to that summer, somebody asked me if I would be selling that car soon. But I drive by Vintage Vinyl. Yes. No, it was Street Side Records. I drove by Street Side Records. There's a huge crowd of people. I spot out of these people, a very easy man to spot, Clay Pentland.
Man, rest in peace to Clay Pentland.
Rest in peace, Clay Pentland, indeed. I spot Clay out of this crowd of people in front of Street Side Records. I go home at that point, my folks were living right behind like Fitz's. So I go home, I park, I walk back up the street. And by that point, Clay has been joined by Joe Reimer and a couple other people. And I'm like, what is going on? What is this line? And they're like, oh, it's Nelly. And I had no clue who Nelly was. I mean, it was
so this is like 2000 then.
Yes. Yeah. It was the day the album came out. And they're like, oh yeah, he's a rapper from University City. His album comes out today. So I was like, cool. So I got in line with them and, we got autographed posters and everything. And it was, got to meet them and some of the other St. Lunatics. And, of course, within like 24 hours, I recognized what exactly the scope of this song in Nelly's career is doing. And I mean, that song played every time I got in the car on the radio. And it was not till, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years later, VH1 used to have a show called Driven, which was
I remember Driven. Yes.
It was kind of like behind the music, only it was the artist hadn't
for updated artists. You don't have to be already falling off.
It was only Act 1 and Act 2 of Behind the Music. The artist didn't have any scandal to fill out Behind the Music yet, but Driven was sort of that climb up. And so in the Nelly episode of Driven, there's a camera that goes all the way down the line of people, and right at the very, very end of the shot, it's me and Clay and Joe Reimer, and I see the camera and just kind of give a little head nod. And then I remember getting a call. I was at UNLV at the time, so this was probably like 2 or 3 years after it happened. And my buddy's like, I think I just saw you on VH1. Were you at Nelly's album premiere?
And you're like,
I wasn't. Nelly's album
wasn't that long.
Yeah, I don't. Like I said, it was Driven, so Nelly was still rising. So VH1.
But and also you got to think at that time, like if you were on anything on any terrestrial TV, period. And like somebody saw you were like, oh man, you were doing like, whoa, dude, I saw you on Cops. Like you were in the background when they were arresting somebody. Like, what? How did you know that?
Well, so then I had to wait for them to re-air it, and there was no way to
record it.
So I would just get these random phone calls every time it would air for like the next few weeks. I'd get a random phone call like, hey, did I just see you on Driven with Nelly? Like, yes, you did. Yes, you did. So now I have like a digital version where I like recorded the TV screen, and have that shot somewhere in my archive of.
So you can put that in IBMD like you was on Driven.
Yes.
So let's
As
start from the
myself.
beginning. So let's start from the beginning, man. Like, so your family grew up in music. Your dad was a part of the record label early in your life,
Yeah.
running a record label. So like, let's start from there, man.
So yeah, I grew up in University City. My dad is someone who's always been probably more ambitious than experienced, and so he was a musician growing up, and you know, as my brother and I were younger and getting older, he kind of transitioned into management and producing, and started producing records and producing records for some different like punk and ska bands and rock bands in St. Louis, and owned a small record label that, you know, it was never like a like super lucrative thing, but you know, in hindsight, I'm a producer now, in, you know, on the commercial video TV side of it. But yeah, it's interesting to think that, you know, there's so many things about what I do that I witnessed or absorbed kind of him doing. And, you know, as a kid, going to the studio to hear like artists record albums was kind of like, it was cool in hindsight, but at the time it was just like, oh man, I got, you know, we're going to the studio today. We're going to be there for like hours. I'm going to be sitting, you know, I'm going to be sitting on the couch doing my homework, whatever. And it's like, you know, there's bands recording ska punk albums that friends of mine are like still into today, that at the time I was just like 12 years old sitting in the corner. Like, I don't know. It was an interesting thing. It was one of those things that you don't, you know, when you're that age, you don't really know any different. So it's very normal to you. And on the same tip, you know, my parents, you mentioned, you know, me moving out and going to UNLV and living in Las Vegas. And, you know, my parents took us on family vacations there every single year. It was like the only destination we ever
Hold
went
on,
to
so that was your family trip, was the Vegas every year?
every year.
And this is before Vegas became more kid friendly too.
It was kind of at the start of that. I think we
Okay.
started going in 1989 when I was 8.
So
And
the
so,
mafia just left.
yeah. So I started to see that cross. It was very interesting, really, to see that.
Oh, so you remember seeing the transition between like the mafioso feel to like Vegas family friendly, bring your family and gamble.
I was there as a kid. I was there at like the total prime time, because every time we'd go back, there would be more stuff for kids. And then I saw the decline of that. I remember going to like the MGM theme park. MGM used to have a whole theme park behind it.
Really?
And yeah, right when it first opened, called MGM Grand Adventures. And I went to it by myself, you know, and there was like so few people there. I never waited for any ride. I could start to see like the Vegas start to drift away of like, okay, maybe we don't need 10,000 square feet for a theme park. Maybe we should build a boxing ring and like go back to some of, you know, so
and
I
have
saw
a balance of it.
And it kind of went with my ages too, because as I went to college there and you know, graduated and then left, Vegas started to become way more into the bachelor party, and the Hangover, I think, was like sort of kind of jumped into that trend as well. But Vegas definitely went from, you know, small gambler, independently owned, and then family focused, and then high roller focused, and then bachelor party club focused. And I've seen, yeah, every time I've gone back to that town, it's slightly reinventing itself all over again. So of my favorite places to go, there's only like 2 spots left. Batista's restaurant, which is an Italian restaurant behind the Flamingo Hotel, that is like, has so much character. You feel like you're walking into like a deleted scene from Goodfellas.
Oh wow! Oh, I'm gonna check that out.
It's an amazing place. We actually ate there. I got married in Vegas, and that's where we did our sort of like unofficial reception after, with my family and her family. And then the other place is the Peppermill Lounge, which is it's sort of as you head to North Las Vegas. It's just past where I don't know what's there now. The Riviera used to be there in the Sahara, but
going towards the stratosphere up that way.
Yeah, as you kind of right before you get into like North Las Vegas, there's like where the strip kind of ends at like you know, Mirage, Wynn and all that. And then there starts to get seedy, real
seedy. Real after stratosphere is real seedy.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, no, you only got that. What was it, VIP or what is it? The new one that they have up there that's north. They've been trying to build more up north.
They're doing a good job.
The one on the new line, it's one off the new line when you go up. It's across from Stratosphere. It's a brand new one. I forgot who owned that one, but it's like 2 or 3 new ones up that way.
Yeah. No, that's definitely, I mean, that's where the expansion has to go at this point. But yeah, I don't know. That city's just it's always changing. But yeah, the Peppermill is this lounge that the front is very much like a diner, but then you go back to the Champagne Lounge and it's like they've probably renovated since then, probably totally ruined it. But it was like high back velvet booths, and it had these like crazy like it'd be like a water fountain in the middle with like fire. It was very like 60s, you know, and everything was like mirrors and fake plants. And
So it
so
looked
the
like the
actual
Riviera.
what's that?
It looked like the Riviera on the inside, like
Right next to where the Riviera used to be.
Must have been.
But
It
yeah,
looked like how the
yeah.
Riviera had that older look on the inside.
Yeah, this place doesn't feel like it's been touched since the 60s. And they used to be able to buy $8 bottles of champagne called Jacques Bonnet. And so we would just go there and order bottle after bottle of Jacques Bonnet at $8.
They had to shut that down. There's no way possible they could let that keep going.
Yeah, I mean, it was like a place where people brought prostitutes. I mean, it was just like seedy, you know, it was like you go in there and you can look around and every table has a totally different story. And some tables are like, I don't know what that table's up to, but it was like, yeah, it was very like everything was very private booths. And like I said, it's just like water, fire, mirrors, and fake plants everywhere. And so there's so many mirrors. It was one of those things where it felt like it was like 10 times larger than it actually was, just because like you couldn't look any direction without a mirror reflecting another mirror reflecting another mirror. So it was a great place. Those are the only two spots in Vegas that I can still hang my hat on for recommendations. Everything else is reinvented, closed, and opened as 6 different things since I was last there. The last time I was there was for my wedding. I really don't know when I'll be back. At this point, I feel like, you know, I'm kind of like I love to play craps there, but everything else about Vegas is no longer of interest to me. Like the
I
clubs
feel the same way, man, about Vegas.
are
Man.
even turned into like miniature clubs, and I just want to go there and play cheap craps and eat at Batista's and drink at the Peppermill. I'm like a 90-year-old Vegas tourist.
I don't know, like yeah. Last time I was in Vegas was 2019, and like I was like, we ended up going like, well, a lot of my coworkers, we were hanging out, and we went to what is the former Hollywood casino, or is it Hollywood casino, for Planet Hollywood.
Yes.
So my coworker stayed at MGM. I at the last minute I rebooked myself and stayed at the Marriott resort with a whole bunch of old people, and like I literally was just like them. There's no casino in there.
Yeah.
It's across from like the stuff, and I would look and go in there and just relax, go to sleep. It was nothing jumping off. I just go in there and relax. But like we went to Planet Hollywood and we are drinking all night, and this is the night. I don't know if you saw where my coworkers are telling people that I was a Dominican baseball player, and like getting us free drinks and stuff, that I just got drafted, and I was a Dominican baseball player. And it was just like, it would have been like, that story would have been great like 10 years ago, I feel like. And I would have like maxed it out more. I was more like, I was a disgruntled baseball player that I was trying to go home. I felt like, yeah, all right, yeah. Thanks for the Crown and Coke. All right, yeah, and I'm trying to get ready to get out. No, stay out. And like, it doesn't feel the same. I don't know what it was. Maybe it's age. I don't know what it is.
I think it's probably got a lot to do with it. I mean, Vegas is an amazingly fun place to lie and pretend to be somebody else. I've done it many, many times. I remember being out there. What was nice is when I transferred out to UNLV, that was my junior and senior year. And so that was when everybody was turning 21. So people kept coming out for their 21st birthdays, and it was great. I mean, it was just a total blast. And I remember going out with Chris Keevan and Jordan Roof and Mike Delano had all come out there, and I had an all white suit on. Well, Jordan had an all black suit on. So after seeing that, I was like, I'm going to wear an all white suit, and you and I are going to play craps, and we're going to be at different ends of the table. Him and I had he bet the don't pass line, which is like completely sacrilegious.
Right. It's like saying like you don't like, it's like almost like you want to fight somebody in there because you're like,
exactly. I mean, the best part about craps is like everybody like wins together. And although the don't pass line has incrementally better odds, they're so small over the long term that the cost of being the asshole that plays the don't pass line surpasses the statistical advantage. So it's just something you never, ever do, especially in Las Vegas. So he was like, I strictly play the don't pass line. And
Hold up, Jordan said that?
That was maybe he's changed, but like, yeah, in our 21-year-old gambling self, we go to craps when he starts playing the don't pass line, and I look at him like I'm mortified that he's playing the don't pass line. So all weekend we had argued about this, and then when he came out wearing all black, I was like, all right, perfect. I'm gonna wear all white, and we're gonna have our craps, showdown. And so fast forward later on that night, I'm acting a fool and dancing my ass off, and I've probably started dancing with somebody I shouldn't have been dancing with. And Jordan sort of spotted this guy who was not happy at whoever I was dancing with. And he stopped and was like, oh God, I got to think of the country. He said, he goes, I wouldn't mess with that guy if I were you. He's one of the princes of the United Arab Emirates, I think is what he told the guy.
Oh, he told that guy, Jordan told the guy that?
Jordan told the guy that, and the guy believed it solely based on the fact that I was in an all-white suit. I had I don't know, sunglasses on. There was something about it that somehow clicked.
I mean, I did it. Somebody's wearing an all-white suit out randomly.
And I'm there with Jordan and Mike Delano.
And they're super big dudes.
Some big dudes, yeah. And they were kind of off to the side. And so it's sort of I was just acting a fool. And they gave a heads up to the guy. I wouldn't mess with him. He's the prince from the United Arab Emirates. And it worked,
So, man, no, he's another, if anybody knows, he's one of my high school buddies, St. Louis University High School, man. As we say, the best high school west of the Mississippi. We don't know about the East Coast too much, but west of the Mississippi, we're the best high school west of Mississippi. And I remember Alec's first dream. I don't know if your first dream freshman year, you were like, yo, I'm going to move to Cuba and it's going to stop. Castro's going to fall. And I want to be there first to open up the casinos. That was one of the first jobs you said I want to do. And you said it in class. What do you want to be when you grow up? I want to go to Cuba and start casinos.
Yeah, that's entirely possible. That sounds like me for sure. 100%. The desire to move to Las Vegas started pretty young. And so I kind of had my compass pointed towards UNLV, pretty much, like I said, like you said, back in high school. And I mean, man, when you think about it, you and I go back good 25 years now.
Yeah.
It was so crazy. I was telling my wife the other day.
26 this year, man. 26 this year.
That's right. Because last year was a reunion.
Yeah.
I was telling my wife about when you and I were in gym class. I think it was either junior or senior year. And at that point, all the real athletes are taking weights.
Right. We're the only people that
take off the whole top 50 percentile of athletics. And then everybody left in gym class, junior, senior year, guys like you and me who are average to below average, all of a sudden become superstars.
Yeah.
With who's ever left over. And I distinctly remember you and me somehow, I think we just asserted ourselves as team captains, and we had a nice basketball rivalry where we would pick these teams. And
I don't know why nobody else would tell us we can't be captains.
No, I think we were just you both and I have that competitive spirit where we just love the competition.
Yeah.
And we were both player coaching. you were player coach and simultaneously announcing the entire game or the entire gym class, even giving props to the opposite team when they. But those were great times. I also credit you with maybe the most ambitious sport attempt I've ever witnessed.
In basketball?
Basketball, for those who don't know, is basically soccer with your hands and a smaller, so it's a hockey goal. So a hockey goal stands to I don't know.
So it's probably in between a hockey and a soccer goal because it was higher than a normal hockey. I mean, normal hockey goes probably on a soccer. No. It's in between a soccer and a hockey because it wasn't necessarily a hockey one.
It definitely, I remember the top of it at least came to our chest.
Yeah.
At whatever height that was. And you in the basketball tournament stood behind the net, chest high net, and somehow in your head, I would love to see the visuals in your head of how this all if an artist rendering of what you're
No,
playing.
I was in my mind, I was thinking, you know what? Nobody's ever decided to come over the top from the back.
So yeah, so essentially you assumed you were gonna you didn't even have like a running start. It was like
No,
just
I went straight up off 2
jump,
feet.
trying to clear the like 4.5-foot net, propel yourself forward, catch the goalie off guard where you would just like kind of, I guess, like throw it between your legs.
Yeah, I was
just,
gonna go back in, come back in.
yes, roll into some sort of amazing tuck, and everyone would just laud your abilities. That was the
That's the visual.
the reality was, here's the net, and you just kind of like bam and just
And broke the net.
Yeah, the net ends, the bash ball tournament canceled for all parties. And yeah, no, I admired not only the vision, but the confidence to just be like, you know what, I'm gonna try this. And if it works out, it's gonna be the greatest bash ball play.
And if not, look, I get kicked out. And then it was crazy. The next year,
25 years later, we're still talking about it though. So
yeah, but the next year,
right.
You missed the one. The next year, it wasn't necessarily me. So the next year, it was that was actually no, because that was like the fall one. There was a spring bash ball tournament. They reinstated me. Reinstated me.
The ban was lifted.
But that team had me, Mr. Clark, Spencer McCall, and like a whole bunch of other people. So, but we were paying. Shout out to Dave Gentoli. Dave Gentoli was on the team we were playing, and it was like all these other soccer players too. So it got real rough because Mr. Clark and Mr. McCall were the only. Who was over Stuco?
I can picture him, but I can't think of his
He
name.
was on the other team too, though, but he was also running it. So it was like a weird thing. Yeah. But they were like, play us hard, it's all good. Yeah. And Mr. Clark stopped in the middle and was like, damn it, I'm gonna start handing out demerit to the minute. Because it was getting that rough. It was the semifinals of that basketball tournament.
Every tournament at an all boys high school is
never completed.
Yeah. Yes. None of those indoor street hockey tournaments ever made it past.
Never. I would tell people all the time it was like being in prison, but not being in prison.
Yeah.
Your life is okay. It's not like you have to worry, but it was that much testosterone pumping through the hallways constantly.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, people are getting pushed. It's nothing. It's just, there's all kind of things being said that normally, I wonder now, are those same things said, or has it changed because of society changing, or is it still like a prison?
I always wonder, and I have no idea, but I always wonder, just as like children in particular are much more open mind with like gender and homosexuality and things like that.
Because if you were gay in our school, man, that was the worst thing ever.
You never told? There were plenty of people who clearly were, but never felt comfortable enough to like say it. And I felt terrible.
Like, especially thinking back, you're like, damn, man, that had to be torturous.
Sure, like absolutely. And especially given the fact that like it wouldn't have come as a surprise to anybody at all had they just said it. But, at no point did they ever feel comfortable enough to say that. And that's really unfortunate. But I would be curious if that has evolved enough to today's, a classroom at SLUH now, if there's, a handful of kids who are at least like, yeah, fuck it.
Or one of them bringing another guy to a dance.
Man, yeah, I don't know. I hope that that's the case. I have no idea. I'm also curious if they still have a rifle club, which seems like in this no idea.
No, we're not lying, people. There was a real rifle club that we had at the school.
And I regret not being in it. That's an amazing thing to have.
It seemed like it was all like lame kids in there. I think if it was like some cooler kids that went to the rifle club, it kind of opened up.
That's the worst
all
part
the kids that you may have thought was white supremacists, was in the rifle club. Like, oh yeah, he's a white supremacist. I get it. Yeah. I know why you're in a rifle club.
Yeah, it was definitely a club that was not taken advantage of by the masses. It was like a very niche group of people who were like, yeah, I'm in the rifle club. And some of them were like legitimately people who lived pretty far out in the sticks and like shot recreationally already. I would have just liked to have learned to shoot. I mean, I think it would just been a great place to learn. And I mean, honestly, you know, the thought, you know, you put one of those guns in the hands of a kid, and you know, at least those only hold like 2 bullets. You know, it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
you know,
And
if
I wonder, like,
if
with the
you're gonna do
like,
something bad with a gun, you can just go to the store and buy it and
yeah,
do whatever.
they got it. They have to have taken out the rifle club with like the mass shootings and stuff.
I don't know. I would be curious.
I mean, and they remodeled the school too. That I don't even know if the billiards room and rifle room are even there anymore.
And I'd hate to see the billiards room go. And that's the thing is, I think when people would picture is like the rifle club, like, oh, they must have had like a range out back. And like, no, it was in the basement. It was just
like you wouldn't know about it unless you knew
not
about
at
it.
all.
There's people that probably went to a high school that did not know it was a rifle club. Still, like it was that kind of like niche, type of thing. You know, and like even with people being like gay at our school, man, like I would tell people all the time, like man, being black, I was like, yeah, being black was its challenges within itself, but somebody being gay was totally different because I could be black and be black, but somebody that was gay in the 90s and like they couldn't, like, I don't know when you could be, I mean, it was so many. Nobody ever like straight up was just like straight up saying anything, enemies, racially epithets towards me. But it was sure enough a lot of gay slurs being thrown around constantly.
Oh, sure. And, you know, with varying degrees of intent, but certainly an atmosphere where you would really, really have had to have been a very, I mean, at that age, I can't imagine how mature you would have to be like, I'm just going to take this on and I'm going to like come out and just let the cards fall where they may. I mean, there were plenty of guys who, you know, after college or whatever, you hear that they've come out and it's like, well, yeah, everybody, there was no surprise there, but you would have liked to have thought that we would have had an atmosphere where people were comfortable enough. But yeah, no, absolutely 100%. There's a million things that people said all day, every day without thinking twice about it.
No, I'm talking about, and it'd be
hindsight, you're just
even
like,
in jest, it wouldn't even be like it'd be in jest. Like,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Like, you know, so after, so no, I'm going back to before we even transition to going to college and more into your career. So Alec, so freshman year, so I met Alec freshman year in general, but then Alec was the only white guy to go to the post freshman homecoming dance with all the black people in the class.
Which
because he had the only black day, so he was like, I think he looked around like, okay, this is gonna be more comfortable me going with them to Calicos than going with them to Plazas.
Yeah. And I gave my dad no heads up on that whatsoever. So I was like, the parents came, they sat at like a different table.
Yeah.
I don't know who else's moms drove.
Yeah, it was a whole bunch of people, moms and dads. They sat over and we sat at our own table and kicked it, you know, and did our thing.
It was great, man. That was so much fun.
It was downtown Calicos, man.
Yeah. That was, my date was in 8th grade. And that was like, it's so funny to think like a 1 year difference like that was like, oh, wow.
But that was a big deal.
To a freshman high school, you're bringing an 8th grade to a 9th grade dance. But in my defense, she was probably the best looking date I ever brought to any of those dances. I can say that because I never kept up. Every single girl I brought to a dance, we took a photo and never saw each other again for the most part. So I'm not worried on that.
So I'm gonna fast forward. I took that same girl to the to senior homecoming 3 years later.
Well done. Was she the best looking date you ever brought to one of the dances?
Yeah, just about. And then I'm gonna even make it even funnier. My business partner Adrian, that was his girlfriend for like 5 years as a grown ass adults, like in our 30s.
No kidding. Her cousin is the guy I went to grade school with.
Yeah, Whitney.
Yeah, Whitney Caldwell.
Yeah, he's a dentist in DC now.
I know. I really want to. Next time I'm in DC, I really want to cross paths him. He was one of my absolute like favorite people in grade school, and like we were both very motivated to like write and act and shoot stuff. And yeah, he was like one of the first people I found who was also like, yeah, you want to write sketches and film them and do silly shit like that. 100%. And so he was definitely like one of the first like collaborators at any level, whereas like, you know, yeah, going out and just trying to.
So then I'm going to make it even funnier. So me and Whitney had a scheduled fight freshman year because he went to CBC. Scheduled fight. understanding people back then, you had to literally schedule a fight because we didn't have no cell phones. Like, all right, I'm gonna meet you at Rosati Kane, 5 o'clock on May the 3rd.
What was the over?
It was over a girl, man. It was over a girl.
Yeah.
It was over a girl that went to Rosary.
Oh man. Yeah. No, I love the
but man, me and him got super cool, right? And that's how life is. Me and him got super cool after that, and you know, we've been all good since then.
Totally. Well, it is funny too, like when you are in that, you know, when you're in high school and like every other high school is a rivalry and everything's just a rivalry.
On 10.
Yeah, all the time. And then as you get out and, you know, outside of high school and outside of St. Louis, and it's like all of a sudden you realize like, oh, wow, all those people are just like me. Every single person who went to an MCC school in St. Louis had a very, very similar experience and probably knows a ton of the same people. So it's funny how those like big walls that you build in high school are like the complete opposite later on in life, where, you know, for me to run into somebody who even knows what the MCC is in St. Louis is so funny, and like immediately connecting. If I see somebody out here in Maine that has I saw a guy with a Cardinals hat on at a Trader Joe's parking lot, and I was pulling in as he was leaving, and I was like, man, I wonder how I can get his attention. Find out who he knows, what he's doing out here. Because yeah, it's you know, it's funny to think I have so many really, really, really good friends who went to Chaminade, who I knew a little bit in high school, but like we're so tight now, and it's so funny to think.
And I wonder if those kids are tighter now because of social media and they're able to connect more. Like if you didn't have like a general party, or and I'm not talking about like a mixer, I'm talking about like someone's house party that you kind of intermingle with. Yeah. You never got to really intermingle with anybody else from those other schools like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they were all, you just kind of was like, yo, they're just the enemy, and that's just what it's gonna be, you know. You know, and then you have like Jordan Roof, you know, who's just a maniac when it came to like CBC, like wanting to fight them. Like, so I mean,
it's funny too, guys like that who are like just totally different people now altogether. It's just
Jordan Roof is totally laid back now.
Yeah, so many guys in, you know, being at the 25 reunion last year, it's so funny how in high school you put everybody into these categories, and there's so many people that I remember being so unbelievable intimidated by. Also the fact that, you know, freshman year of high school I was 4'11". So you're immediately like, you know, how probably when you got into SLUH freshman year, you're immediately like seeking out, okay, let me find other black students.
Yep.
Trying to find other people under 5'2" to like, you immediately try to just connect with people who are going through the same struggle, whatever that may be. So yeah, I actually, looking back on it, give a tremendous amount of credit to Jay Phillips for being a person who, one, had like just a tremendous personality and was still to this day one of the most outgoing people, but one of the few people who I just think like in freshman year was just like connecting everyone, and like
totally inclusive brother.
I feel like within a month, every person in our class knew who Jay was.
100%.
Maybe didn't know 30 names, but like everybody knew Jay, and he was just that kind of personality. He sat 2 seats away from me in homeroom, so I think he brought me out of my shell in a huge way that I didn't even recognize till years later. And looking back on it, was like, man, people like Jay who really uplifted everyone instead of trying to like, well, who, you know, there's just so many things in high school that you say to try and be cool, and you just look back on. And I mean, I was by no means a bully, but there was plenty of things I look back and I'm like, man, why wasn't I fucking cooler to that person? Like, what, who cares? And there's, you know, and Jay, I feel like was one of those people who's like forever like, man, I don't care what anybody says about anybody. I'm going to be friends with everybody.
You go to Mizzou, man. Why didn't you go directly to UNLV? Is to just go straight into hotel restaurant management?
Yeah. I mean, that was purely a, I'm going to squeeze everything I can out of the college experience, freshman and sophomore year in Mizzou.
So you treated Mizzou like a JUCO.
Yeah, 100%. I took classes that were using the same books that we had just used in high school. So, I mean, it was like, it was all the gen ed stuff. So I was just taking an easy workload and like partying as much as I possibly could. Cause I was one of those people, I drank very, very, very few times in high school, you know, my parents were like extremely liberal in every capacity, but drinking was something that like I had never treaded, like crossed the line with. So when I got to college, I was, you know, making up for lost times and just partied my ass off and, you know, fulfilled every fraternity stereotype you want to well, no, let's fulfilled all the partying fraternity stereotypes. I don't want to take on the full weight of fraternity stereotypes. Yeah, I had a good time at Mizzou, and you know, my parents went there, my brother went there. I've always been a diehard Mizzou athletic fan, so I just wanted to go there, get my 2 year. You know, you can get your first 2 years anywhere, so I just wanted to go there and enjoy already having friends and you know going to football games and you know, actually that was right before we got to go to football. So basketball was really where it was at. I never missed a home basketball game. That was when we had Kareem Rush and Clarence
Yeah.
Gilbert and Keon Dooling. And those were very fun years for Mizzou basketball. But yeah, I knew I was probably going to end up at UNLV and I just wanted to have fun for 2 years. So Mizzou was the easiest, fastest way to do that.
So then after leaving
And it was
Mizzou,
great.
when you first got to Mizzou, you were like, I'm only gonna be here 2 years. So you really treated it like a JUCO. Like I'm already setting my path up.
My sophomore year, my last semester of sophomore year, I called my semester of no consequences, where I was very much like, I can do anything because I'm never going to see most of these people again. And I really was. It was like if you watch Seinfeld, it was like the summer of George,
Yeah.
where I just had like my like I'm gonna just do whatever the hell I want because I'm gone at the end of this semester. So let's have at it. So that was fun. And then I went, you know, transferred to UNLV. Didn't know anybody in Las Vegas. I met a very good friend who actually I'll be picking up at the airport in the next hour.
Oh wow.
Yeah, who he had transferred from University of Colorado, and him and I met junior year, and then got a place together. And you know had a blast out there, and that was, you know, I worked when I was in school in Las Vegas, 2 jobs actually, so pretty much all my friends were work friends, and then my roommate was like my really only like school friend. So you know, UNLV, there's not really a campus life, so to speak. No, not very many people live on campus. It's an older student population in general, and so Mizzou was like the ultimate, you know, college town, fraternity experience. Everybody's right in the same spot. And UNLV was like the complete opposite in terms of a college experience. And, you know, it was great. And I met a lot of great people that I worked with.
Would it become comparable to like a commuter school and other like bigger cities, like a University of Cincinnati, UMSL?
Especially in the hospitality program, there was a lot of international students, a ton of Japanese students, and a lot of older students, a lot of people who had like got into hospitality, gotten to a certain level and wanted to go back to school, get their degree, and then get into like management or ownership or whatever. So it was definitely, it was, I had a lot of classes where there was a lot of people over 25 or 30 years old there.
Oh, wow. So then after you were there, what was some of the craziest things you saw for like, that would be like, yo, this is not, as college people, we're not supposed to be seeing this.
Oh man. I mean, definitely drug use for sure. And I mean, I guess people see that in college, but like, you know, I think Las Vegas attracts sort of a transient personality, and there's a lot of, especially in the hospitality industry, there's a lot of cash on hand, and especially in those days. Although I will say, I do remember the day I got hired at the Venetian, at this restaurant, the Venetian, was on my first day was 9/11, and that, you know, put everything. That was my junior year, and that put everything, the brakes on everything in Las Vegas for a while there. And that Planet Hollywood hotel, that in 2001 had just undergone a huge renovation as the Aladdin Hotel. And of course, it reopened right around 9/11. And now all of a sudden you have this very Middle Eastern themed hotel. Right? I mean, it was like, you know, they immediately were like, this whole thing has got to be scrapped. There's no way this is gonna work now. But yeah, it was very, I liked UNLV a lot. I liked the teachers. I liked the campus. It was like a radically different experience being that far away from home. And, you know, I had all these, having gone to Las Vegas as a tourist for so long, it's a very interesting thing to be living there and kind of trying to wrap your head around there. But I definitely didn't want to stick around after graduation. I felt like this is going to be a fun 2 years. I'm going to get my degree and then I'm going to get out of here, because the career path there, it wasn't what I was interested in, working on one of the larger chains. And yeah, I like visiting, but every year as I get a little older and the city changes a little bit more, my desire to go back is less and less. And our wedding was kind of like it was like my Vegas bucket list. That's how you know you married the right person, because my wife is not at all interested in a big wedding. She's like the complete opposite of what you would expect most brides. I was the groomzilla. I was, she was like, we can go to City Hall for all I care. And I was like, well, we got to do something. Like, my parents will never let me hear the end of it.
If just like just a stereotypical woman would be.
Yeah, exactly. In some form or another. So, I was like, we could always just do like a weekend in Las Vegas. And my parents, of course, be happy. My parents ended up, when we did it, my parents flew out like 3 days ahead of us and left like 2 days after. They were like, we were there like Thursday to Monday. They're like, well, we get there on Tuesday and we leave the following Friday.
Oh, wow. So they were there kicking it.
Yeah, for sure. And they're like, well, it's cheaper flights. And I'm like, yeah, you're going to save $90 on a flight, but you're going to be there an extra like 5 days. So
spending
it's not
X
like
amount of money.
Yeah. So yeah.
So did you know automatically you were going to go to Chicago, or you just got the opportunity at J. Alexander's to?
Yeah, I mean, I really liked the idea of going to Chicago. I wanted a bigger city. I wanted to be in the Midwest, and it was like close enough to be able to drive back to St. Louis, but far enough away where I didn't feel like I was, going to be right back where I started. So I really fell in love with the idea of Chicago, and my roommate that I had mentioned, him and I both won these awards from UNLV where we got a free trip to Chicago that actually we had to miss our graduation to go to. But we had it was during the restaurant convention, and that was an absolute blast. They put us up at a great hotel, and, we did our interviews with J. Alexander's, and that trip kind of cemented it. I had made a couple very small trips up to Chicago, like in between summers in college, but yeah, at the very end of UNLV, going to Chicago and connecting with a couple, people that had moved up there, it felt like this is definitely the place for me to be. And now, so I moved to Chicago in 2003, and I lived there till 2010, and I was in LA for 2.5 years, and then I moved back in 2013, and then I just left Chicago last year. So I've spent like 18 of the last 22 years in Chicago. And it really, it very much feels like my home now. I've spent more time there than St. Louis. So yeah. I love Chicago to death, but I was like, when we decided to move out here to Maine, I was kind of like, felt like I'd hit a plateau. And a buddy of mine described Chicago so perfectly. We were talking about just the ways in which the city and the cops and the tickets and the like bureaucracy of everything is like takes its toll. And he said, he goes, the thing about Chicago, it's always nibbling. And I was like, man, that hits it on the head.
They go, you're gonna get a ticket somewhere.
Oh man, it's always nibbling at you. And there's just, everybody's got a story about unfair towing and ticket and just ways in which the city has just said like, nah, go ahead and give us our money. Yeah, that wasn't fair, but we don't care. Go ahead and give us our money. So yeah, I got to a point with Chicago where I was just kind of like, you know what, I can work remotely. I can come back every couple months. I still work for a company based in Chicago. So I'm back there every like 2 months or so, if not more. So I'm able to kind of still have a footprint there and go back and see the people and the places I want to be connected to, even though that's not really possible now. But yeah, I kind of hit that plateau of Chicago, but it definitely feels like it will always be a city that I could gravitate back towards. It's like, it's everything I love about everything I want in a city. It's big, it's friendly, it's got a little bit of everything. There's things I would certainly like to improve, but Chicago has just like a warmth and a character and a friendliness that is unique. And I think especially unique in a city that large, and having lived in LA and Vegas and now Portland, Maine, I feel like, in St. Louis, of course. Yeah. I feel like there's a Chicago kinship that, is really endearing, that people, when they visit, they tap into right away.
So let's go back, man. You got on The Price is Right at one point.
Actually, It was for my 30th birthday. So once you've been on The Price is Right, you can't go on again for 10 years. So next month, I turned 40 in April. And so my 40th birthday, my Price is Right.
So hold on. So you're gonna go try to go back and like try to get the title back?
Yeah, you can go back on after 10 years. So when I went on,
can you call them like, yo, I'm a former contestant, like the champ, like they never had like a champions edition, did they? Like
no. They just, when you go, so I can tell this will be a great scoop for your podcast. This is basically how you get on The Price is Right.
Okay.
I went once by myself, which is almost impossible to get called up because the whole thing about The Price is Right is they want to call people who are going to be with people who are going to cheer like crazy when they get called up, you know? So having gone once, I went once by myself just because I wanted to see it before Bob Barker retired. That was like a goal, life's goal.
Yeah.
So I saw Bob, went on by myself, got the lay of the land, and then I waited until my 30th birthday to go back for a couple of reasons. One, I wanted to, I knew that you got to get a group reservation. That's like 100% the key. So if you have a group of 15 or more, and they are sticklers, if it's 14 people, you lose all the credibility or all the perks of being a group. So you got to get 15 people, and you get like you sign up and get your reservation ahead of time. Everybody else has to like get there super early in the morning. It's hours of waiting, and there's
Alec Pinkston, come on down. You're the next contestant on The Price is Right.
Alec, birthday boy, celebrating his 30th birthday today.
Elegantly crafted, breathtaking collection. Dev Valencia.
Thank you, Manuela.
$1.
$1. All right. Actual retail price is $710. Alec, come on up here, buddy. A flip, $6,998. Let's find out if he's on his way to Santa Fe. Yeah, you got it. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to Alec. Showcase.
no, like, it's just like, you know, we start handing out numbers at 6 a.m. and then you come back at like 10:30. But if you have a group reservation, you show up at 10:30, your group's already in, you're good to go. So I found 15 people, and I got shirts made for everyone that specifically called out the fact that it was my birthday. So I'm like, okay, I've got my group, boom, 15 people. On everybody's shirts, it says like, I don't even remember what we did like a fill in the blank kind of thing, like a Mad Lib, where it's like, I want to win blank by playing blank in order to celebrate Alec's 30th birthday or whatever. So everybody had their own thing. I was like, I want to win a hot tub by playing, I don't know what even game I listed, but
Plinko or something.
yeah. Exactly. So when you go in, they interview every single person. And this is kind of the key, is when they interview you, like, you got like the moment they start interviewing you, your people, your group have to be like excited and like just like lift. Like the moment you start getting interviewed, I think they started singing happy birthday or something. It was like, it really like branded me as like, okay, because they almost, it's not a guarantee, but they literally will almost pick one person from every single group. There'll usually be like 4 or 5 groups in any one taping, and you almost always see any group get at least one person called out. So I knew my odds were within like 1 in 15 if I made a group reservation. And then if it was specifically my birthday, then it's going to be ways even higher. So I get called up, and it's like the 5th pricing game. So it's getting like down to the wire, like of just being called up at all. So I go up to contestants row.
Yeah. Send it. Yeah, I'll put it in here now.
Video is pretty good. So the first pricing game comes out. I throw out, it's like for some kind of radio or something like that. I throw out a bid. The girl next to me throws out a bid slightly higher. She gets picked. She goes up to play for a car and loses. She plays the dice game too.
Oh, the big dice that you were roll out.
Yeah. So I only had 2 chances because, like I said, it was the 5th game was right before I got called up. So, you know, first chance is already blown. Second chance is up, and they bring out some jewelry, and the girl the Barker's Beauty or whatever they call him now comes out, and she's like, comes right in between us, and she's showing this ring, and I kind of get caught looking at her boobs a little bit on camera. Nevertheless, the ring comes up, and I from my training, I'm like, okay, the jewelry on this show is always way overpriced, way more than you think it's going to cost. So my strategy is I'm going to have the highest bid no matter what. So everybody does their thing. I look into my group of people, and I can specifically see Colin Rolfing saying $1, and I ignore that completely, and I give it the highest bid, like $1,200 or something. Everybody has overbid. So now,
so if you put $1, you would have had it on that one.
I would have had it. So now, not only do we have to rebid, but now in the back of my head, I'm like, oh man, somebody in my group gave me the answer. I ignored their advice, and
I can't do it again.
He's gonna hold that over my head for the rest of my life. So that is in the back of my head this whole time as everybody else is bidding. I haven't even heard what they've bid. I have no idea. Now it's up to me. I have no idea what the other bids are. And I basically am just like $1. And I just don't even, I've kind of realized that like I've gotten this far, and now it's all, I've blown it. So he says the price, and like I said, I never even heard what everybody else bid. So I have no idea. So I'm just looking up at the screen, and then I see like my number is flashing, and all of a sudden it hits me that I've won. And I was like, oh my God. I was so excited just to make it on stage, because like having the experience of being called up and not getting out of contestants row has got to be just. And
then they give you that rice-a-roni on your way out.
Exactly. Soul crushing. And my dad years earlier had been a contestant on Wheel of Fortune and lost. And he was in the 3rd spot. And anytime Wheel of Fortune ever came on TV, he would always point out that the person in the 3rd spot was doing the worst. And he always blamed it on being in the 3rd spot.
Oh, he said it was just a thing of being in the 3rd spot.
Yeah, that's what he's always blamed it on. And
so then you go into what game did you have?
I can't remember. It was called Flip Flop, actually. And it was super simple. There's 4 numbers in the price of this vacation, and you either flip the first 2, the last 2, or flip them both. So the prize was a trip to Santa Fe, New Mexico, which is probably to this day the worst destination I've seen given out on The Price is Right ever. I mean, I was like, Santa Fe? All right. And it was like, and you'll tour the George O'Keeffe Museum. All right.
The George O'Keeffe Museum.
Yeah. So the price listed was something like, it was like $96.25. So it's either the price of this trip is $9,625, or you can flip to be $6,900, or you can flip to 25 to be 52, or you can flip them both. So clearly, right out of the gate, a trip to Santa Fe
is not $9,000.
Not $9,000, and really, it's not $6,000 either.
No.
So I flipped the front 2. Again, my research had told me that typically when there's like 3 choices of flip one, flip the other, flip both, usually it's one or the other. Very rarely do they have you flip both. That was my own logic going into it. So I flipped the front 2 because clearly it's not a $10,000 vacation, and I win. And, when they break it down, and I'm like, how is this whole thing? Because it's like airfare, hotel for a week, George O'Keeffe Museum ticket, and then like $500 spending cash. And so I'm like, how do they get to $7,000 in this thing? Well, they had the airfare listed as like $4,000 or something outrageous.
Is it first class?
From Los Angeles. Los Angeles to Santa Fe is probably like a
45 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, so I declined the airfare because I was like, I don't want to pay the taxes on that. Just give me all the other stuff. So long story short, I ended up taking the trip. There was a girl I was quasi seeing at the time who came out there and stayed with me for a buddy came out for the first 4 days, and we were trying to write a screenplay. So we just kind of locked ourselves in the room.
Yeah, and just locked it down.
Wrote the screenplay for 4 days straight and went out and ate and whatever. Then I had a day by myself, And then I had this girl who I had been seeing come out for the weekend.
So did you drive? You just paid your own airfare out there?
Yeah, I just bought my flight. But I remember the day that I had by myself, I was at a bar and I was trying to like figure out what to do.
Because it's Santa Fe.
Literally like turned to the guy to my right and I'm like, if you had one day in Santa Fe, what would you do? And his answer was, I would get drunk as fuck. And I'm like, okay.
I'm already starting.
I guess it probably is going to be your answer for any city. So then I literally turned to my left later on and had asked a totally different person the same question who had not heard anything before. And she said, I would get high as fuck. And I'm like, okay, well, Santa Fe locals seem to just drink and do drugs.
Yeah.
So, it was a nice hotel.
So you got to the Showcase Showdown, right?
I didn't. I got to the wheel and the guy, I don't remember. The guy before me had spun like 90 or 95 cents. So I had like a pretty tall order. So I got to the wheel and spun like 75 or something. And I had to spin again to try to hit exactly 25 and didn't get it. So I did not make it to the Showcase Showdown. But, now I got a chance, for my 40th birthday. Here's
try to come back.
Yeah, now the redemption. I don't know if you've seen there's a documentary about a guy who like memorized all the prices and he created his own simulations and like would practice and he would go in the crowd and he would feed people information and he basically won whoever was like standing before or after him in line, because you get to know the people you're in line with really well because you're standing in line for like hours and hours and hours. So if you're not there with a group, you're definitely going to meet the strangers that you're in line with. And so he would just meet these people and win them all kinds of money. He would tell them like, listen, I really study this really tightly.
So he was like the Legend of Bagger Vance, but for Price is Right.
100%. And so there was a scandal a couple years back where somebody hit the Showcase Showdown price to the dollar. And the show was all freaked out because they thought somebody had cheated, which wasn't entirely untrue. It was the guy that this documentary is about who had fed the price. And he's like, I should not have given him the exact price, but in my head, I knew that was the total because they recycled prizes all the time. I mean, if you paid attention, you could definitely do the homework, but he was only on there, you can only go on once in 10 years. So he went like 30 times. He only got called up on stage once. And when he got called up on stage, I think he played Plinko, which is like the only game where there's not a lot of skill. I mean,
it's randomized for real.
Yeah. So yeah, Price is Right was like literally a life's goal. Originally, the plan was because when I turned 30, my mom turned 60 and my grandpa turned 90. And I wanted to bring all of us. And then something happened. My parents' flight didn't work out. So my folks had come in town, but they weren't able to stay for the taping. And my grandpa at that point was too hard of hearing and old to make the trip. So it ended up just being me. But the fact that I got on it and my grandma, who was like the world, as everyone's grandma is like the world's biggest Price is Right fan. But the fact that I made it on the Price is Right in her lifetime was literally a life goal for sure. So it was, the Price is Right. I still have the ring. I think the last time when my folks were last headed to Las Vegas, I think I gave my mom the ring to borrow for good luck, but I think she has it. Yeah. I still have the ring somewhere.
So man, before we get into like your career now, being a producer, writer, all this stuff, do you remember the time that we were drunk in Chicago and went in the drive-thru in a cab to White Castles?
I remember more or less. Yeah, there were a couple of those, but that does sound. I do also remember you.
And you use that as part of the payment for our cab. Was some of the White Castles as his tip? Was part of. He's like, you want part of his crave pack, don't you?
Probably not the first time I've taken a cab through White Castle, and probably not the first time I've used White Castle as a currency. Yeah, that is the one thing.
I'll never forget it because I was with a girl and we were all sitting in the back, and you were like, "Yeah, no," and she was like, "Is he tipping them for real with part of the White Castles?" And he's like, "Yeah, I guess it's working out." So we literally sat there, y'all, in a yellow cab going around the White Castles thing. So and it wasn't like the White Castles driver was on his break. No, he had actually people in there. We were ordering White Castles while going through the drive-thru.
Yeah. man, that is, yeah, the White Castle is definitely on the short list of things that I miss that I can't get out here. But, you know, they have the frozen, but, you know, it's on my list.
I felt like with the mockumentary you did
Yeah, that's
on
way
the
back.
band.
Yeah.
And it was ahead of its time if you really look at like how people are doing their thing now with the tragic person. So basically at the time, if anybody had seen it was only Spinal Tap, maybe what the Holy Grail, what was it, what is it, Benny Hinn and the Holy Grail, no, not Benny Hinn, Holy Grail, what is that,
Monty Python,
and then you had a smaller hip-hop version called Fear of a Black Hat. And it was basically about this torture group and their whole route. But Alec kind of updated it with the band and like how they were going through their thing. But it was like, it was more based off of kind of Aerosmith-ish. Was that what kind of the?
Yeah, we had, it was based off, there's a group called Jackal, and they had a song called She Loves My Cock that had
That's where they came from. Okay.
Yeah, they had a music video, and like that band was like such a like total 90s hair band kind of thing, that
like Nelson.
Yeah. And we're Poison. They were more harder rock than Nelson.
Okay.
But yeah, they were definitely like the Motley Crue, like, and so we had a party called the Backstage Pass Party where we dressed as this fictitious band, and we had it like set up so it felt like it was like after a concert. We used to have like very heavily themed parties.
I came to one of your theme Halloween parties.
Yeah. We did a communist party. We did an Olympics party. We did a spelling bee party. We did a lot of Santa versus Jesus boxing matches. We did that like 3 times. But that was one of them I came to, the Santa versus Jesus boxing matches. Yeah, those were my favorites. That was some of my favorite parties ever. But so we had all these photos and stuff from this party, which looked like this fake band that we had created that we called Jagged Pussy. We had like all this footage that felt like it was like backstage footage, and everybody was dressed up for the party in like sort of 90s, you know, kind of groupie outfits and stuff like that. So we wrote a sketch based around the fact that we had all this footage that we could pull from, and then we shot these interviews very, like you said, what's the Spinal Tap, very Spinal Tap style. And my good friend Lauren McDonald, also a Mizzou grad, he went as a character MC Rock and Block, and we tried to claim that we had the first rap rock crossover
before Run DMC Aerosmith.
Yeah, ours was called Cookies and Motherfucking Cream. It was Jagged Pussy and MC Rock and Block, and that was part of the story. I remember we had a guy, a friend of a friend, who, you know, some friends of mine worked in post-production sound in LA, and they had a voiceover artist do the narration of it for us. It was very behind the music, like,
but no, the guy's voice was amazing though.
Like, it added everything. It made everything. Yeah, that was definitely early on in my sketch comedy days. But yeah, I got into, you know, I went to UNLV for hospitality and started working in restaurants. And then as I got out of restaurant management and started bartending, all of a sudden I was making twice as much money, working half as many hours. And I kind of used that opportunity to start taking improv classes, to start writing and connecting with people and shooting sketches. And that's how I learned how to edit. That's how I learned how to write. That's how I learned how to direct. And all those are like, you know, I'm not necessarily proficient, but it was enough to like keep going, keep improving. And then one thing led to another, and I got this opportunity to work making commercials, and I just kind of met the right people at the right time. I met my current boss, who at that point was a director just trying to get more comedic stuff on his reel. And my buddies and I were comedy writers trying to get better looking content. So, you know, we collaborated on a music video called What Happens on the
Facebook.
Yeah. What Happens on the Clark Street Stays on the Facebook. And this was actually pre-Jersey Shore, when like that growing up Gotti sort of spiky hair Jersey thing.
So this is like what, 08, 09?
Yeah, it was right when Facebook started.
Yeah.
So, yeah, right on probably 07, 08, somewhere around there. So the idea of like these kind of trashy guys going out and taking all these photos of drinking it was like Red Bull and Gotti,
vodka. Red Bull and vodka
and stuff, and Facebook were all coming together. And so we did this.
It's kind of like it was kind of like Night at the Roxbury kind of feel, but an updated version.
Yeah. And so Clark Street in Chicago has, you know, a lot of cheesy bars. And so the hook was What Happens on the Clark Street Stays on the Facebook. And it was just, this parody of like club people at that time. And that was the first collaboration. And then, you know, they were doing commercials, and they had started this studio, and I was working mostly nights. And so I would come in and write and edit my own stuff. And if they needed help, I would help them with whatever they needed creatively. And it just kind of evolved. And, you know, I moved to LA in 2010 to try and start selling pilots, and I filmed a travel show pilot, and I wanted to get into original content. So I moved to LA, got the opportunity to start making commercials out there, and then opened up. I basically used them to help me establish myself in LA, and I opened up an office for them. The name of the company is Odd Machine. So I opened up an office for them in Los Angeles. And after that got up and running, they were looking for an executive producer in Chicago. And it was kind of just too, I mean, it was exactly what I wanted. It was everything I wanted. You know, we had this 10,000 square foot stage. I had all these people that I knew in Chicago would help me shoot stuff and make it look good. And at that point, and even to this day, to an extent, I just wanted to make my own content and have side projects, passion projects, pilots always working. So I was out in LA 2.5 years and starting to really, like, I don't want to say struggle, but I was definitely like, okay, I'm gonna have to wait tables to supplement my income, and I was not excited about that.
And then you're also a former general manager. So you're like, I can really run this place for real.
Yeah, exactly. Not even that, but yeah, I was like, I had run restaurants, and then I had bartended at restaurants where I made like super easy, great money. And then all of a sudden I was in LA, and like I was, you know, having to supplement. So I was working like graveyard shifts at a diner where everybody was showing up just wasted and stoned and ordering food at 3 a.m. And I was just like, and Chicago having an opening as an executive producer was like the lifeline I needed, and pretty much just like skyrocketed me straight up the ladder to like, okay, now I have all this infrastructure and all these, you know, resources and people to start shooting more stuff. So I shot a pilot for like a comedic morning show. That was like kind of sketch comedy based morning show. And
when I hear Girl Scouts of America, I think great fucking cookies.
Perhaps you should have worn pants.
Pants become socks, socks become shoes, and before you know it, it's a G-damn saddle.
All of DC is here. Lefties, righties, tighty-whities, alt-center, schmucks, cucks, tea party, lemon party. Mason.
That pony is your next president.
Get elected and then ignored them.
And you're confident that American teens can be so easily influenced?
Behold the power of the hashtag.
That's a bull. See how it only has one teat? Sort of bad timing. My hobo friend just HJ'd a mini bowl.
And now the last couple of years, you know, I've got a pilot that won some money from Project Greenlight, and so we won this contest.
That's a good big
web
production
series.
company, yeah.
Yeah, so we in 2016, right before the election, we started shooting this character we called Senataur, who was a Senataur.
Right. I remember that. I remember you did the crowdfunding and everything for it.
Yeah, no, I didn't cry. I mean, we did the web series, but I wasn't looking for any money at that point. We put it out, and then when we just put out as like it's campaign commercials. Like,
what were you voting for it? I'm trying to remember. You did some kind of.
Yeah, it was just a parody, and you know, we started putting it together before Trump was a legitimate candidate. And so, you know, of course, he kind of hijacked the entire election, and so even trying to be satirical was really tough because
it was real.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of really fucked up our ability to make fun of this election because our characters' outlandish positions were no longer so outlandish. They were like barely different than the reality of what was going on at the time. So we shot this very rudimentary form of the character doing these campaign commercials. And then a couple months after the campaign or the election was over, Project Greenlight had a contest on this platform called Tongle, and they were looking for an animated TV series. We already had some footage. We shot a pitch video the night before it was due. We didn't had a lot of, it was a total Hail Mary for the project. We were basically ready to move on. And then we ended up, we made it to the top 10. And so they gave us a little bit of money to shoot a proof of concept show. So we shot this like 3-minute proof of concept, and then we won. And then they gave us money to shoot a full pilot. Everybody else, for the most part in the contest, it was 2D cartoon animation. Ours is kind of inspired by Team America World Police.
Yes, I was thinking that's like, exactly what the feel of it was. Yeah, Team America.
So it was like, and that in itself was inspired by a 60s British show called Thunderbirds, where it was marionettes and they had like all these crazy explosions. It was like James Bond of puppets. And it was like,
I remember that as a kid, they used to come on like TBS and stuff.
Yeah, some of their movies and stuff would always re-air. And yeah, so Thunderbirds inspired all of this style. And so we did this style, which was really so much harder than doing 2D animation. I mean, everything had to be built practically. So we bent over backwards to create this pilot. And fast forward to, we finished the pilot. And right as we finished it, one of the companies got bought out by a bigger company that doesn't do anything with television. And so now we're basically sitting on a shelf and just trying to wait to figure out what's next. We've delivered this pilot that we love, and everybody we've shown it to really likes it. And we can't share it with the public. So it's in this weird like purgatory where we've like done everything we can to make this thing great. And now we're just waiting on somebody. It's a thing you hear all the time, where the people that you're developing the project with, by the time the project's done, there's a whole different group of people at the table. And so that in itself is a big, big challenge in trying to get new people excited about it. And, the people that we got approval on the script are different people that are giving us approval on the actual edit. So it's just like a lot of cooks in the kitchen to deal with. And so anyway, that's kind of the most recent pilot.
So you guys are basically in developmental hell, basically.
Yeah, 100%.
So man, now, so you have one thing, man, that is the funniest thing is these letters from. So Alec has this whole series where he actually went back and forth with one of the was it one of those Nigerian the scammers. So Alec actually is going back. Over how many years did you do this?
It was like a year and a half. There was like so I got this email where it was like a typical, hey, there's someone who's died who has all this money that has the same last name as you. So if you just give me your banking information, I'll make sure you get this enormous inheritance that you don't deserve, but it's whatever. So I replied on a whim, and I kept getting this guy to reply back. And I kept like trying to up the stakes to really like, every time I sent an email back, I just had these crazy extenuating circumstances. And he said that he was based in London. So I kept trying to like say that I was trying to make it to London to meet in person. And every time I sent an email, I'm like, I'm never going to hear back from this guy again. And then I'd get another email back.
So how many, because you did about maybe, because he had, if you go to his Instagram, it's Alec Pinkston on Instagram, right?
Yeah.
And you got on YouTube too, right?
Probably, yeah. I did.
Yeah, so how many, were those all the letters, or were some of them just like in between, like kind of, those are the funniest ones?
I took, a lot of them were a lot longer. So I really tried to like whittle down the emails to like the core components. Yeah. Never like, all the emails are real, but they're just edited down to like the short, because I mean, some of them went on quite a bit.
So some of them was just basic small talk, but like that you didn't pull in, like.
I basically just kept trying to like blame him for the fact that this deal wasn't going through and trying to bring him in on a much bigger, more illegal deal.
Right. It's like him to invest back with you. Like, why don't you take some of the money I was going to give you, double it up, and let's get something else going.
Your deal is small potatoes, but I'm going to make us both rich. Just stick with me.
Did you ever talk to him on the phone?
No. I tried to call a couple times and never got an answer, but it went on for about a year and a half. And there were like, I think there were 2 times where there was a good like 6-month gap where I wouldn't hear anything, and then he would resurface.
So he was like a real salesman. Let me follow back up with this lead and see what's going on.
I kind of think that I feel like the last couple might have come from somebody else using that. I feel like it was like a lead that maybe he.
So I took over the
next yeah, it was a Glengarry leads. He's like, I got this guy we talked about for 10 months, but.
So it's like a sales company. I took over his accounts.
So I had these emails that I sat on for like 6 or 7 years. I didn't know what to do with them. And then I don't know, came up in conversation. I showed them to a buddy and he's like, these are great. You got to do something with them. And right around that time, I met a storyboard artist and he was like, hey, I really want to get some work. If you want to do like a test project, let me know. And I had gotten approached by this guy over the St. Louis Rams Super Bowl story to do this show called Blackout Diaries, which is like a storytelling stand-up show where people will tell a story and they have like a projector that they'll have pictures from the story. So I had snuck into the Rams Super Bowl party after they won in 99. And I did that story on this show and it was a big hit. And they asked me to come back and do another. And I was like, I don't have like because the premise is like drunk and like shit that happens when you're drunk.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't really have a story about being drunk, but I do have this like spam thing that might kind of work. And so they did one that was Blackout Diaries and it was kind of like impersonator things. And so somehow worked into it. And so this guy, I needed visuals to go along with this. So the storyboard artist took all these letters and drew these amazing storyboards that went along with the email exchange, the correspondence. And so I did that for this live show and it was a lot of fun. And then the pandemic, that was like one of my early pandemic projects was like, okay, I've got this audio, I've got these letters, I've got these video or these storyboards. Let me cut it into a short series. So now it's like a 7 or 8 part series. Each part's like a minute and a half and just takes you through the whole saga. And it's called Letters from Vincent.
You should try to email it back and be like, hey, I'm back. I just got out of jail, but I still have the deal. I still have a deal.
I think I did. I think I have had 2 or 3 unanswered emails over the last several years. I think I tried to contact him again when I did it on that storytelling thing. I think I tried to contact him again. And then I actually got a different spammer last year that I started up with, and I should do something with that, but I tried to loop him into the conversation.
So you try to bring 2 people in like attack?
Yeah. I tried to, yeah. I was like, yeah. But
have you seen that Dateline where Dateline actually goes through the whole thing and like flies to London and like meets them and everything?
No, that's amazing though.
Yeah, like they meet, like the guy shows up in a hotel room with 2 of the guys. They got on suits like it's a business like meeting. It's like it was like a big thing, and they were like, "Oh no, man, we don't have no money."
That's hilarious. I love it that those are the things that I always want to see all the way through. You know, anytime you see like ads by the roadside or whatever, this job pays $10,000 a month or whatever, where it's like, if it pays $10,000 a month, then why are you stapling a cardboard sign to a light
on a park bench?
Yeah, exactly. I want to find all those things. So
I mean, I've been doing lately is like for like spam calls. I seem like they've been through the roof like the last few years. I feel like on my cell phone. So sometimes I'll ask them, I'll talk to them, I'll be like, "What you got on?" Like I'll like really like, no, sir. I mean, no. I will give you whatever you need. Let me know what you got on. Take off your shirt. Like it'd be like literally like I just say the most outlandish stuff on the phone.
I used to have
I act like I'm mentally handicapped. Like I just got this cell phone.
I used to have a lot more fun with the calls. I have a phone now that kind of screens out a lot of the spam. So I don't get caught off guard by it anymore. When I used to get caught off guard, I was like, all right, I'm already on the phone. I might as well enjoy it.
Let's do it. Let's go.
I would always get the calls for like, boner pills and stuff like that. And I would just be like, how quickly can you get it here? How quickly can you get it? Like time is a factor. What will it take to get those pills within an hour? And they're like, no, it's not really how it works. And I'm like, well,
I can't, no deal.
Yeah. But
Alec, man, thank you for coming on Mic Checka, man. I appreciate it, man.
It's been my absolute pleasure.
What is it working about? What do you have coming up soon? Anybody can check out soon. I guess the one project is in developmental hell, but
I mean, I've still got a trailer for it. If you go to alecpinkston.com or my Instagram, all the stuff I've done is up there in some form. And yeah, man, Big D, it's always a pleasure, man. 26 years.
Yeah, man. Man. There's so many other stories people don't even understand and know, man. Like, I know everybody else has their high school stories, but like, I feel like all ours were so special and different because it's all boys. So it's like on 10, like everything, your normal high school story, it's on 10 at our school. Like,
yeah, no doubt, man. Well, it's always a pleasure to
definitely, man. Definitely. I appreciate it, brother.
Cool, man. Well, we'll do it again sometime. Hopefully in person next time.
Peace.